Wagwan goodies, welcome back to my channel. It's your good girl Adore, and we are back, guys. We are back for part 2 of the ex-boyfriend from hell story. So I know my goodies have been waiting. You guys have been messaging me talking about where's part 2, where's part 2, when's part 2 coming out. It is finally here, guys. Okay, 2 weeks, but it's finally here. I tell you, brace yourselves, because if y'all think part 1 was disgusting, part 2 is just on another level of Jersey. For the newcomers, the new goodies out there that are new to my channel or just now knowing about me, make sure you guys watch part 1 so y'all could come back to part 2 and, you know, follow along. So before we get into the story time, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and also turn on your post notifications so you guys are notified when your good girl posts. Also, do not forget to follow me on all my social medias. That is my Instagram and my Twitter. And like I said, I think I will put my TikTok also, because, you know, that's what's popping right now. I don't think I put my TikTok in the last video, but this video I will definitely put my TikTok, so make sure you guys follow me on there also. So yeah, let's just jump into the story time. So in the last video, the last story time, we did end off on the toothbrush incident, and if you guys have not watched part 1, go watch it so you guys could follow along with what's going to happen now. So now, like I said, after the whole knife pulling, the mom calling, the crying, the screaming, the fighting, all of that, my ex, finally calms down. He goes, sits in the living room, or sits in the hallway. Actually, he sat in the hallway, which was across from the room that I was in. And like I said, at this time I was on the phone with my mom, you know, still shaking up. Like, when I say I was still very startled, I was crying still, and I was just, a lot was going on. I was just a hot mess at this point. My mom's there just trying to talk to me, trying to, you know, console me, and he's there sitting on the floor, you know, listening to everything happening and all the stuff my mom's saying and all this stuff, and he's not saying anything. He's quiet, dead quiet. At this point, I'm very scared. Like, I'm still kind of scared because this man just pulled a knife on me. He was swerving in the car. Like, he did so much at this point that I didn't know what he was capable of doing next. I didn't know if I should fall asleep, because like I said, this man's been arguing with me from morning till night, and by this time it was like midnight. So that was a whole day of just arguing and bickering for no reason over one toothbrush, guys. One toothbrush. So I'm contemplating if I should fall asleep or what should I do, because I'm really tired. Like, at this point I'm weak. Like, when I say I felt weak, I had no strength. I had nothing left in me to close my eyes and just fall asleep and just pray that, you know, tomorrow is a better day. And I eventually fell asleep. So I decided to fall asleep, but before I fell asleep, I noticed that he decided to walk in the living room, and I think he ended up falling asleep in the living room. So now time has passed, I'm sleeping, right? And I think 5 o'clock, it reached like 5, 6 o'clock. I feel him come into the bed. I'm still shaking up because, like I said, we just had a big, huge fight. And at this point, I don't even want him nowhere near me. Feel him come in the bed. I'm like, I jump out of my sleep. I'm like, oh my gosh, don't tell me he's gonna start again. He just then places his arm around my waist, and I was like, get the F off of me. Like, I didn't say it, but I just took my hand and like pulled his hand off of me, because I'm like, do not touch me. I don't want nobody to touch me, especially not you. And I felt him catch an attitude. And at this point I didn't care, because it's like, after everything, you really think that we are gonna go back to how we used to be? I think the F not. Part, my ex was like that. He would do stuff to piss me off. Like, he would do things to just trigger me. And after a few hours, after everything cool off and we're done argue, he would always want to come back and act like nothing happened. The thing I forgot to mention about the toothbrush situation. So another reason why I did not want him using my toothbrush, besides him just using my toothbrush overall, he was not feeling well. He had a little cold. I think he ended up catching a cold from like the AC. The AC was hella strong in the place that we were at, and you know, AC and then going outside in the heat sometimes affects your body and you'll start, you know, feeling a little sick. So he was feeling sick for the past few days, and even more, I was like, I don't want you using my toothbrush. So the next day flies in. We finally get up. It's finally morning time, and it is time for us to leave the place that we were staying, because we were staying like in an Airbnb. Another thing I forgot to tell y'all, the day we got into that fight was our last day staying in the Airbnb. So imagine me, I'm just trying to enjoy the last day of me in the local place, and he wants to start all this drama for no reason. Damn, a whole day wasted for what? So after the fight and everything, my mom was actually on the phone. Like, when I was talking to my mom, she was like, I think it's best that you just call our family and tell them to come pick you up, and you know, you stay with them until it's time for you to come back home. I think that's the best option right now, because this boy is losing his bonkers, and if he could do this, I don't trust him with anything else. Like, he's broken my trust too much now, and I just don't feel safe being around him. So that was the overall plan. Day flies in, it's time for us to check out. So we get up and I start getting my stuff ready and like packing up my stuff so we could head back to his mom's house. Me thinking that, okay, after everything, you know, hopefully he calms down and, you know, we could just move. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna pack up my stuff, we'll go to his mom's house, and I'll figure it out after that. When I tell you, I woke up the next day feeling like complete shit. In my head, I'm like, don't tell me this nigga just gave me whatever he had. So I'm there like, oh my gosh, like, how the hell am I supposed to do anything? Like, I feel like crap right now. So besides the point of me feeling like crap, he was having a whole attitude. Even after everything, you would think it would be done. You would think all the bickering would be over. It was still not over, guys. He was still angry. And I know it's because when he came in the room and tried to put his arms around me, he thought that we were gonna go back to old times. Because I rejected him, he just got mad all over again. So he's packing up his stuff, I'm packing up my stuff. He's catching a whole attitude. He's throwing things around. He's just doing the most at this point, and I'm just so over it. Like, I don't even want to talk. I don't want to argue. I just want to pack my stuff and like get out of here. So fast forward, we pack up our stuff, we get in the car. He has a whole attitude, and we finally get to his mom's house. Finally reach his mom's house, right? And also another thing I forgot to tell y'all. The night before, when we got in the big fight over the toothbrush, when my mom called to let his mother know that he was pulling a knife out on me, his mother was pissed drunk. Like, she was drunk out of her own mind. Like, she couldn't even comprehend what was going on. That's another reason why she wanted to call the police, because she can't really do anything. She's not in her right state of mind. The easiest option was to just call the police. And that was also a big part in why he had such a toxic relationship with his mother is because she was an alcoholic. Like, and you know how it goes with people that, you know, have alcohol issues. When they get drunk, they say whatever. They're very toxic to be around. They're very volatile. They're just overall not fun people, and she was not a fun person to be around when she was drunk. So, like I said, the night before, when all this was going on, she was pissed drunk, so she wasn't even in her right mind to understand what was going on. Go to her and I basically tell her what happened because, like I said, she was drunk, so she could not understand what was going on. She didn't understand the full story. So when I'm telling her the story, she's agreeing with me, like, yeah, who wants anybody to use their toothbrush? She's trying to let him know that, and he's not hearing it. Like, he's just straight up ignorant, like just a cuss, just making a whole scene about this toothbrush situation. Still worse, what makes it worse for me is that the boy was sick. That just shows that you don't care about me. Obviously you don't care about my health. So he's still there trying to justify him using my toothbrush. His mom's trying to talk to him. He's just not listening. And I was just like so over it. Like, I just wanted to sleep. We were arguing from morning till night. We didn't finish arguing till midnight. I probably didn't fall asleep until like 2 o'clock in the morning. And we had to get up early before checkout. So I'm still weak. And I told y'all I woke up feeling like shit. So his mom's consoling me and she's like, you know, just rest your head, like just lay your head down, you know, don't stress yourself, on her bed, and, you know, try to rest myself and get my thoughts together. You would think after all of that stuff that went on the night before, you would think I would leave right away, but I didn't, guys. So while I was sick, I'm not gonna lie, he did take care of me, but that is the least he could have did because he's the one that caused me to get sick in the first place. And now that I think back at it, he really enjoyed me being sick. I remember one time before that trip happened, I went down there like back in August. I got really sick. And he straight out told me that he liked when I was sick. I always had that thought in the back of my head, like, damn, who said that? Like, why would you say something like that? Why would you like seeing me sick, you know? It just showed how much of a narcissist he was, because he liked when I was in a vulnerable state. He liked when I couldn't talk back. He liked when I had nothing. I just had to just, you know, lay there and, you know, be weak. He loved it. So after a few days, probably like 2 or 3 days, I got back to myself. Around this time, his family was planning to all come down because they all have their little celebration during December until, you know, January. His family started slowly coming to Jamaica, but first it was his grandmother. So his grandmother ended up coming, and I decided to even stay around him and his people for a little bit longer, hoping that, you know, maybe his family coming down would make him, you know, a changed person, or at least make him calm down so I could at least enjoy the few weeks I had left of this trip. His family coming down just made things even worse for us. And like I said, that's why I should have followed my mother's foolish advice and just left his ass. I was honestly just being stubborn. Honestly, I was just being stubborn because I spent so much time, wasted so much money already on this trip. I'm like, there's no way I'm just gonna let this just go to waste. Like, I have to make the best out of it. Something has to come out of this trip, you know? But nothing came out of this trip except negativity. My fault, because I just didn't want to listen, and I didn't want to leave when I was supposed to leave. And his grandmother finally flies in. In the first part of the story time, I said how much his grandmother used to praise him and tell me how much he was her favorite and how good of a grandson he was, and all of this and that played a big part in why I even fell for him. Because, you know, if your grandmother loves you and she has so much respect for him, he must be a decent person, or so I thought. Okay, that's great. Like, I could finally see him and his grandmother together, and, you know, maybe this will show me a better side to him, even though he's done showed me his true colors throughout the trip. But I was just hoping that, you know, maybe his grandmother coming down would make him a better person, or at least act right for a little bit. But when I tell y'all, the boy was just so, like, words can't even describe how disgusting this boy was. So like I told y'all in part 1, his mother's main issue with him was the car, and she tried her absolute best to get this car taken away from him because she wanted the car for herself, and she felt that he wasn't using it to do what he was supposed to do, which was run taxi, because he wasn't. But anyways, his mother was the type to gossip a lot, and she loved to call the family and basically tell them what was going on. So obviously, because of that, she told her mother, which is my ex's grandmother, what's been going on, which caused his grandmother to then put her little input, and that then caused her and him to get into it real bad. He even started disrespecting his grandmother in front of me and others. His grandmother got into it, and when I tell you, I never heard anybody disrespect their grandmother the way I heard that boy disrespect his grandmother. This boy straight out told his grandmother to suck her dead mother. This boy he changed completely. He was just off. Like, he was not even himself. Like I said in the first part, he was arguing with every single person. Like, he was just so angry, and I couldn't understand why. Thinking that, okay, when his grandmother comes down, you know, he'll act right. It did not go that way. He got even worse when she came down. When I heard him say that to his grandmother, my heart completely dropped to the floor. I was speechless. Everybody around was speechless because it was so unwarranted. It was so disrespectful and uncalled for. I thought what he did to me was terrible. Yes, it was terrible. Him pulling a knife on me, that was the ultimate. But hearing him disrespect his grandmother and hearing him disrespect his mother was just like, yeah, I knew this had to end. So after that big blow up between him and his grandmother, the family basically shunned him, and that made him feel very unwanted. And I also couldn't stand being around him, and I was completely and utterly turned off by his actions, because once I saw him disrespect the two women in his life, I knew that there would be no relationship between me and him, because a man that does not respect his mother or his grandmother was a man that could never respect any woman. After being around his family, when they finally all showed up, things just kept getting worse. And I just reached a point where I was like, yeah, I can't do it anymore. It just got really uncomfortable for me. I just couldn't deal with it anymore. If my mom started having very strange dreams while I was around him and his family. So the straw that broke the camel's back for me was when his brother came down. He completely disregarded me and he felt that he didn't need me anymore. And one day I decided to ask him if he could take me somewhere because I wanted to get something for my mother before I came back home. I guess he didn't feel what I needed or whatever I needed to do was that important. So he decided to hang up the phone on me. One thing about me, you are not going to hang up no phone on me. I find that to be so disrespectful. So after that, I was like, yeah, this is my last and final straw with this boy. And I finally made that phone call and called my family and made them pick me up. So I end up leaving his family's house, and my cousin ends up picking me up. My cousin and her husband ends up picking me up. I honestly dust my feet off, said my little prayers, and never looked back. I actually left when he wasn't home. So when he got back home, he obviously texted me and asked where I was. And I basically told him, like, I'm done, like, I'm gone. He couldn't do nothing about it. He knew that I was done with him. He knew that the relationship was most likely going to be over. So he just had to, accept that. So fast forward, it's time for me to finally get home. I ended up having to stay in Jamaica a week longer because the rule came into effect that you had to be tested, PCR test, before you could go on any plane. And at that time, Jamaica did not have any PCR tests. So a lot of Canadians were stranded in Jamaica and could not get home. That they ended up making an exemption rule for certain people to be able to fly back home. But if they fly back home, they have to quarantine in a hotel for a few days and get their test results before they could go home. I was very frustrated, and if you guys don't believe me, watch my video because I did have a video up when I had to quarantine in the hotel for 4 days. Just going through a horrible trip, dealing with so much drama. I just honestly wanted to just go home, and not being able to go home just made me even more upset. So after I get back home, so I decided to just cut him off. That really sent him tripping because he was very possessive and very crazy. So he would always blow up my phone every day. He would try and text me. He would try to text me on all my social medias. If he couldn't reach me there, he would try to call my mom to find out where I was. I just wanted nothing to do with him because, nigga, you pulled a knife on me. Like, there's nothing more you could say to me at this point. Like, there's nothing we could really talk about. I would eventually answer his calls, but every time he would call me, it was just to tell me bad things or things going on in his life. One day, he decides to call me, and he tells me that he just came from the hospital. So, obviously, I'm like, what the hell? Like, what do you mean you just came from the hospital? So he tells me how the doctor told him that he has an ulcer. So like I said, I told y'all I wasn't really speaking to him. So he knew the only way to get back in contact with me is by playing on my sympathy. And he knew by telling me that he was sick that I would eventually talk back to him. But I later then found out he didn't have an ulcer. He actually had a STI. So I start like, you know, freaking out. I'm like, what the hell? What do you mean you have an ulcer? I said I wasn't speaking to him for the past few months, so I don't know what he was doing. I don't know how he's been taking care of himself, but I guess he just, you know, gave up. He just started drinking constantly, because every time I would talk to him, like whenever I did decide to talk to him, he would always be drinking. He was always drunk, and you know, he was just a loose cannon at this point. So after he convinced me that he had an ulcer, me and him started talking back again. Yes, guys, I know, real yamhead behavior. So after that whole him calling me about the ulcer situation, I then started talking back to him. You know, check up on him, making sure that he's okay. And I guess his ulcer went away, or he was cured from it. He just went back into his, you know, shady movements. So y'all remember the same girl I told you about in part 1, how I questioned him about her and he denied even knowing her and having any relationships with her. So once I got back home, I noticed that she was watching me hella hard. Like, she would watch everything I do. If I went on live with my friends, she would always watch the live, be watching all of my movements. And it wasn't only her watching me, there was other random girls watching me too, and I knew they were all coming from his end. So months go by. So he finally calls me one day, confessing to me, just, you know, opening up to me, saying how sorry he was for everything he's done and how he really wants to change. Since I left him, so much things has been going wrong in his life, how like things just keep happening to him and all this stuff. So he's just there confessing and, you know, confiding in me and stuff, and what's been going on these past few months. So literally when he was telling me all these things, in my head I'm just like, good for your ass, because look at all the stuff you done to me and the things you put me through. So this is just karma biting you in your ass. Also, another thing I forgot to tell you guys, the day before the toothbrush fight happened, we ended up going to his friend's wake. In Jamaica, they call it Nine Night, which is basically a celebration for someone who's passed away. So we ended up going to a Nine Night the day before, and he didn't tell me the day before that we had something to do that day. And I was honestly confused, because I'm like, what? Like, why are you telling me this now? Like, you didn't even give me time to like prepare myself or anything. And he tells me in the car that, oh, we have to meet his people, his friend's family, somewhere, so we could take the bus to Portland, because they were having the night in Portland. Finally arrived to the meetup spot so he could park his car and we could go and take the bus to Portland. When we get there, I see the same girl that I told y'all in part 1 that was watching me on Instagram. So in my mind, that was a big red flag, because I asked this man about this girl and he straight out denied and said, oh, he doesn't know her, you know, he has nothing to do with her, he don't know where she's from. He just basically denied even knowing about this girl. In my head, like, what the hell? I thought he said he don't know this girl. All of a sudden he's saying, oh, this is his friend and this and that. So I'm like, okay. And it is very uncomfortable for me, because all these people on this bus are that same girl's family and friends. So before we ended up reaching our destination in Portland, we ended up stopping in some garage because the bus ended up getting a flat tire. So while we were waiting for the tires to be changed, one of the conductors on the bus, he asked me who I came with. And obviously the first thing I'm like, why would he ask me that? Like, he didn't see me sitting next to my ex. So I pointed out that I came with my ex, and he just gave me this look. And obviously when he gave me a look, I was like, what was that look for? Like, why you asked me that? And he just started getting real nervous. Like, he didn't want to say something. Like, he knew something, but he didn't want to say something. So right there was like red flag number 2. I'll show y'all a video of me on the bus. Once I got back home, I still noticed that girl always watching me on Instagram, and she ended up following me, I guess because she finally saw me in real life. Felt like, okay, we could be friends or whatever. Probably a week after, he calls me and tells me about losing his car and all the stuff that's been happening. I get a message. Lo and behold, so the same girl, she messages me. So in my head I'm like, that's weird, why is she messaging me? So she asked me if me and my ex are together, and I straight out tell her, no, we are not. So after that, she's like, oh, okay, because he said that he don't want nobody. Okay, this girl might have something on him. Let me hear what she has to say, because obviously she wanted to tell me something. So I give her my actual phone number so she can message me. And y'all, when I tell you, the girl did not spill tea. She spilled the whole pot. From the start to the middle to the end. She'd tell me everything. She'd tell me all of what my lovely ex has been doing behind my back.
My name is near Precious. All Precious are one of them girls. In a Mandela Lane, which I go do nails. Him have 2 girls in there. I don't know everything, but them just don't want them can't say nothing to him. You know him, Steve. Nobody can talk to him. So them just have to just look and watch till him get to him forget. Or till who leave him or whatever. Fight, but him did have a beat Precious last night. Cause she has set her mix up with Raheem and Fame Woman. And then grab her up and one way for something. And they must say, who shit bad and who this who do this and who do the things them. One way for something.
She starts off by telling me that a fight broke out the night before at his sister's bar, and all 10 of his women catch up. And if you don't know what I mean by catch up, they all got into it. So I'm like, really? Then she proceeds to tell me that she and him have been together this whole time. They were even together before me and him got together. Shocked, like I'm speechless at this point. Like in my head, I'm just like so disgusted right now. So she starts telling details she starts telling me how even when I was down there, because one night when I was down there, he didn't come back to the house. He didn't come back until like the next morning at like 6 o'clock. He gave me some bullcock story about how the police pulled him over and how they held him until the morning. And I did not believe that story, but because it was during this time, it was curfew. Jamaica police were doing that to certain people. If you got caught being out past curfew, they would hold you, or they would either, you know, put you in a jail cell for being out past a certain time. But she said no, police never owed him. He was at her house. So I said, okay. And she tells me how one of the females that, you know, was at the bar the night before ended up cussing or exposing him and said how he ate her out on her period. When I say sick stomach, completely sick stomach, like when the girl was telling me these things, I literally wanted to throw the fuck up. Like, I never been so disgusted in my life. And to know that this boy, the same boy that wanted to argue over my toothbrush, you're doing these things. This is what you're doing. Yes, guys, I will leave you guys at this part. This will be the end of part 2, and hopefully I will have part 3 out soon. I will try my best. I'm gonna try my best to, you know, not take as long as I did for part 2, but it really depends on my schedule, guys, because I really am busy and I am back in school starting next week. So guys, I will try my best to, you know, not take too long with part 3. Please do like, comment, and subscribe, and, you know, let me know what you guys think about this story, because I know it's a lot to take in. Even for me to tell it, it's just a lot to even think about. It's just a lot. I guess I will see you in my next one. Stay safe and stay blessed.